For my next video on oil painting and colour, I'm taking a different approach. I'm working with a landscape subject and mixing colour, modifying colour, neutralising colour using a base of brown. Hello, so I'm Damien Callan, and for the next lessons in colour and oil paint, I'm going to be working outside and putting together a wee landscape and looking at mixing colour using brown to neutralise the colours in the landscape. So I'm putting down some cadmium orange and ultramarine and some white, and initially I'm going to tint my canvas, so making a brown from those colours, lightening that brown and using the lighter version to cover the white canvas and rub it in with a rag. And then with the darker brown mixture, which I've diluted with some spirit, I'm using a thin brush to sketch out some of the outlines of my landscape subject. And it's good to dilute this and have a thin brush so that if you want to rub out and adjust some of your initial drawing, that's an easy thing to do. But these will be a guide for blocking in some of the colours that I'm going to work with in the landscape. I'm going to add cerulean and cadmium yellow to my palette, and now I'm mixing some colours for the water and the sky. For the water, it's ultramarine with a little bit of brown and white. For the sky, it's the cerulean and the ultramarine, again with a touch of brown, just to slightly neutralise that colour. And as I would do for any painting, I'm beginning with some of the larger areas, blocking them in, and a warm blue for the water and a slightly cooler blue for the sky. Then I'm topping up my brown mixture, ultramarine and cadmium orange, and having looked with my eyes half closed, I can see some of the dark shapes in the rocks and the stones on the hillside and on the water's edge, and I've blocked them in. Now I'm going to make a variety of greens, and I start with cadmium yellow and I add some brown and then some white and some orange, and this is for the grasses on the hillside. Then cadmium yellow, brown and ultramarine are the colours that I use to make some of the darker bushes and trees. So it's a slightly more complicated subject matter than some of the fruit and vegetables that I've been demonstrating with, because we've got a real patchwork of different sorts of greens. But by making them, as I'm demonstrating, from the same fairly limited palette, and by modifying the colours, so here I've taken the colour for the grass and the colour for the bushes, mixed them together and added a bit more orange, and that's giving me a variation in the sorts of greens that I see in some of the trees and bushes. That variation, the warmer green, I've now added some cerulean blue to, and that matches quite nicely some of the slightly bluer greens in the foreground. So you can see how these are all related, a family of colours. I want to now create the effect of light on some of the rocks. So I've taken my brown, added some white and some orange. So as these rocks get lighter, they get a little bit more colourful, and the addition of the orange brings out that warmth. So gradually areas are getting blocked in. This is a colour for the shadows cast under the rocks slightly lighter. And all of the new colours, so for example here to lighten the sky, I've added some white and a little bit of cadmium yellow to paint the lighter and cooler area of sky which approaches the horizon. And again with the grasses on the hillside, I'm adding some white and a little bit more orange, and this gradual refinement of the painting is brought about by breaking up some of those larger areas into new mixtures. Now I added cadmium red there because I thought those rocks and some of the bushes and grasses on the hillside needed to be a bit warmer, a bit redder. So the process goes on, gradually adding more light and dark areas to model some of the forms and to create some of the depth in the landscape, but all colours mixed by modifying the colours on my palette. Now ideally I wouldn't have left the reflection as I've done until last. I think I'll do a separate video perhaps on working with reflections. It would have been a good idea just to use the same colours on the hillside in the reflection and let that work at a sort of softer level as I approach the landscape itself. But there we go. So all of those more natural, slightly more subdued colours, the blues and the greens of the landscape, have been mixed by adding a bit of my brown base to each colour and then slowly refining those colours, introducing more light and shade, creating those colours from the same mixtures.